Hello, Riversiders. So today's lesson is on the digestive system. Um, should be a relatively short, simple unit. So let's jump right in. Here's my website. The digestive system. One of the very first things that we all said that living creatures need to do is take in nutrients, consume nutrients. The digestive system is the system that obtains, eats, digests um, those nutrients. Um, so there's lots to this unit. Let's start with super simple things like this paramecium here. You can see that this paramecium, um, it has an oral groove where it eats, and then it has lysosomes that break down whatever it ate and digest it into materials, and then they just diffuse throughout the system. Um, very simple creature, single cell, but it has a digestive system. Um, Here would be a hydra. A hydra is a very small creature. They're sessile. They're attached by the bottom here to the ocean floor, and they have one mouth slash anus, one opening, and they catch food with their little tentacles. They pull it in, they digest the food, they absorb it into their cells. They're only a few cells thick along here, so they absorb the food into their cells, and they spit it back out their one opening. Um, Now, we, like this earthworm here, have two openings. We have what's called a tube within a tube. We have a mouth and an anus at different places. So we have a tube inside of us, and we're a tube. And what's the major advantage of this tube within a tube system? And I know you might be thinking, well, it's sort of gross to poop out your mouth. And I understand that, but that's not the real advantage. The real advantage is we can eat, digest, and eliminate all at the same time. I mean, I don't suggest doing it all at the exact same time, but we can be eating while we're digesting. We can be digesting while we're eliminating. All of this can be happening at the same time, so we can get much bigger. And bigger in the animal kingdom means we can be more complex and fewer predators. We are a better predator ourselves. So it has a lot of advantages. So here we are. This is our tube within a tube. Here's our mouth, and here's our tube. It goes down through the stomach, through the small intestines, then the large intestines. Oops, here's the large intestines, up and around, and then out through the anus. So we have a tube within our tube. Our tube is just very windy and actually very folded on itself too. So let's go through our system because, well, it's easy to relate. It's our system. First one is the mouth. That's the first stop. In the mouth, we have two major kinds of digestion. We have mechanical digestion, where we literally chew the food up. We break it, we just tear it to shreds, tear it and grind it. You can tell what kind of food an animal eats by looking at its teeth. You can see that we have the snippers. We have the canines, so the incisors, the canines, and the molars. That means we nip plants, we kill and tear flesh, and we grind up things like nuts. So we're omnivores. We eat everything. And we also, in our mouth, make something very vital. We make something called saliva. And saliva, or spit, as you know it, has several functions. Number one, it lubricates the throat. Trying to swallow with a dry throat would tear things up and hurt. Number two, it gloms food together so that it all stays in one, what's called a bolus. So it's easier to move through the system. Number three, the salivary amylase in there. That's the chemical why we call it saliva. The salivary amylase breaks down starch. So breads and stuff will just dissolve in our mouth. And it has some minor functions like it stimulates the stomach to start churning. It allows us to taste because our taste buds are recessed, and so the food particles have to dissolve and get down into those recesses. That's why a dry mouth, you don't taste as much. So there's our mouth. That's our first stop. And yeah, there's a list of some of the things that saliva does. Here is swallowing. So as you start to swallow, you can see there is a flap right here. This is called the epiglottis, and it controls the food to go down the correct tube. This tube at the front, called the trachea, is what we breathe through, our windpipe. We don't want food going down that. The one behind it is called the esophagus. Phagus means eating. Esophagus is the tube we use for eating. So it goes down the esophagus. And the process by which we move it through there is a sort of neat process called peristalsis. This muscular contraction that moves the food through our system. It's really cool that we have this. We can swallow while upside down. By the time you're watching this, I've probably already chewed and swallowed food while standing on my head. But not every creature has this. Birds don't. They can't swallow in zero gravity. Don't take a bird into space. Anyways, once it gets down to the bottom of our esophagus, it goes through the esophageal sphincter. Sphincter just means a circular muscle, a muscle that controls one of these tubes and closes it off, and into our stomach. Our stomach is really cool. It has all sorts of things it does. In interest of keeping these short, the stomach basically makes pepsin for breaking down protein, and it has hydrochloric acid, which dissolves just about everything else. So it has hydrochloric acid and pepsin, and there's this cool system by which it keeps itself from getting hurt. And food stays in there until it becomes very liquidy, and then the pyloric sphincter will open up. That sphincter will open up and dump the food into, this is an example of a peptic ulcer. It'll dump it into the small intestine. Small intestine has three parts: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. Don't worry about that. It dumps it into the small intestines, and in the small intestines, first thing you have to do is neutralize that acid so you don't dissolve your own intestines. So you add like a base to neutralize it, and then you add bile from the gallbladder, which is on the underside of the liver, to break down fats. You add a bunch more enzymes. And so in the small intestines where most of the digestion happens, I know you think it's the stomach, it's really the small intestines where most of this happens. So in the small intestines, you're breaking down the stuff, and then you're absorbing it. That's sort of the division between these different sections. The first section, you're adding some things. The next section, you're breaking everything down. The last section, the small intestines, you're you're absorbing all these nutrients into the body. And so by the time you get to here, the end of the small intestines, you've absorbed almost all the nutrients, but not the water. So then it goes into the large intestines, and the large intestines have three parts. It rises, it goes across, and descends. And its main function is to absorb the water back out so that we don't lose all that water that we just ate. And inside all of the intestines, it got these little like finger things that just increase the surface area for more absorption. And the last part of this unit is nutrients. There are macronutrients, things we need like lots of. We might count in grams, or and then there are micronutrients that we need like milligrams. So the big nutrients, the macronutrients, would be things like carbohydrates, your carbs, fats and proteins, water, fiber, those sorts of things. So carbs are what we use for our energy source. Fats, our cells are lined with fat. I mean, we need them in our body. That we can use it for energy too. Protein is for building. Again, we can use it for energy, but carbs are what our body's designed for. Fiber moves stuff through the system. It's undigestible stuff, so it helps the stuff move, helps the bolus move through the system. Water, well, geez, we're made of water. We're mostly water. We need a lot of water. Then there's micronutrients. There's vitamins and minerals. We'll learn in class what each of these vitamins do. Vitamin A is good for your eyes. Vitamin B is good for everything but blood is the catch-all. Vitamin C is for your immune system. Vitamin D is for calcium absorption. Vitamin E is for your skin. Vitamin K is for clotting. The vitamin B, there's like 12 of them. You might have heard like folic acid and niacin, and vitamin B12, and there's tons of them. Then there's the minerals we need. Calcium, that's strong. That's like strong bones and muscles and all your muscle contraction, which includes your heart. Chlorine, that's used for moving water through your system. Iodine, that's used for your metabolism. Iron, that's used for in your blood to move oxygen around. Um, Potassium and sodium, those are salts that we use for cellular communication. Zinc is necessary for the immune system. There's a lot there, and I just am glancing over it. Your body, your metabolic needs change with a lot of factors, including how your genetics and how active you are and what kind of things you've been eating, your physiological state, like if you're sick or if you're nursing or if you're pregnant. There's tons of factors. We'll talk about them in class. I see my time is just about out on this, and if I don't end this soon, I can't post it. So I'm going to call it quits here. If you have any questions, if you want me to do just a deep dive on nutrients or whatever, let me know. I will be happy to do that. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.